The thunder of hooves split the dawn's silence as Olivia Vale clung desperately to her horse's mane, the parched Texas landscape of 1876 rushing past her in a blur. Behind her, flames consumed the only home she'd ever known, and ahead lay nothing but uncertainty and the promise she'd made to her dying father: find her uncle's ranch in Promise Creek and start anew. 3 days of hard riding had left Olivia exhausted, her provisions dwindling to almost nothing. The late August heat pressed down mercilessly as she urged her mare forward, squinting against the horizon. When the silhouette of a rider appeared in the distance, relief and weariness battled within her chest. The stranger approached cautiously, his tall frame relaxed in the saddle of a magnificent chestnut stallion. Sun-weathered skin framed piercing blue eyes beneath the brim of a worn Stetson, and when he spoke, his voice carried the rough texture of the frontier itself. "Madam? You look like you could use some water." He extended a canteen without coming too close, respecting the boundaries that a woman alone would rightfully maintain. "Thank you," Olivia said, accepting the offering with trembling hands. She drank deeply, the lukewarm water feeling like heaven against her parched throat. "Elijah Lawson," he introduced himself, tipping his hat slightly. "Most folks just call me Eli." "Olivia Vale," she replied, handing the canteen back. "I'm looking for Promise Creek. My uncle, James Vale, has a ranch there." Recognition flickered across Eli's face. "Vale Ranch? That's just 3 miles northwest of my place." His expression softened with what might have been pity. "But madam, I should tell you James Vale passed on last winter. Pneumonia took him quick." The news hit Olivia like a physical blow. Her last remaining family gone. The tenuous plan she'd clung to these past days crumbled to dust. I didn't know," she whispered, fighting back tears. "The property's been sitting empty. Town council's been debating what to do with it." Eli studied her face carefully. "You're his kin, you say?" Olivia nodded, struggling to compose herself. "His brother's daughter. My father died last week. Bandits attacked our farm in East Texas." She didn't mention how she'd hidden in the root cellar, listening to the screams, the gunshots, the crackling of flames. Eli's jaw tightened. "I'm mighty sorry to hear that. Look, Promise Creek's still a half-day's ride, and you're in no condition to push on. My ranch isn't far. You can rest there, get a proper meal, and we can sort things out." Propriety demanded refusal, but exhaustion and reality won out. Olivia nodded gratefully. Eli's ranch was modest but well-maintained, a sturdy 2-story house flanked by a barn, corral, and bunkhouse. A wizened Mexican man emerged from the barn as they approached. "Miguel, this here's Miss Vale," Eli called out. "She'll be staying with us a spell. Would you let Mrs. Perkins know we have a guest?" Miguel nodded respectfully toward Olivia before disappearing into the house. "Mrs. Perkins is my housekeeper," Eli explained as he helped Olivia dismount. "Been with me since I started this place 5 years ago. Proper as they come, so your reputation's safe." The mention of her reputation brought a flush to Olivia's cheeks. It hadn't occurred to her until that moment how compromised her situation might appear. Mrs. Perkins proved to be a stout woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and capable hands. She clucked disapprovingly at Olivia's state, and promptly shepherded her upstairs to a bath and clean clothes. "Poor thing, looking like something the coyotes dragged across the territory," she muttered, filling a copper tub with steaming water. "Mr. Lawson said your family's gone? Just terrible. But you're safe now, and we'll get you sorted proper." An hour later, Olivia descended the stairs feeling remarkably refreshed in a borrowed dress that hung slightly loose on her frame. She found Eli at the kitchen table, poring over papers. "I've been looking at the deed to your uncle's property," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "It's a good piece of land, about 80 acres. House needs work, but the barn's solid. If you're his only living relative, it should pass to you without much trouble." "I don't know the first thing about running a ranch," Olivia admitted, sinking into the chair. "Few do when they start," Eli replied with a small smile. I certainly didn't. But Promise Creek's good country, and the folks are decent. You could make a life here. That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in days, Olivia considered her limited options. At 22, with no family and few skills beyond keeping house, her prospects were bleak. The ranch represented independence, something few women in 1876 could claim. Morning came with the sounds of ranch life already in full swing. Olivia dressed quickly in her now clean traveling clothes and made her way downstairs to find Mrs. Perkins kneading bread dough with forceful efficiency. "Mr. Lawson's been up since before dawn," the housekeeper informed her. "Says he's taking you to town today to see the lawyer about your uncle's property." True to his word, Eli had hitched a wagon and was waiting when Olivia stepped outside. The journey to Promise Creek took less than an hour, giving Olivia her first glimpse of the small frontier town, a single main street lined with the essential businesses of Western life: general store, saloon, blacksmith, church, and a modest building marked Sheriff. The lawyer, Mr. Daniels, occupied a small office next to the general store. He was a thin man with spectacles that constantly slipped down his nose. After examining Olivia's identification papers and asking several pointed questions about her family, he nodded. "Everything seems in order, Miss Vale. As Mr. James Vale's sole heir, the property transfers to you. There are, however, outstanding debts against the ranch, property taxes and supplies from the general store that were never settled after your uncle's passing." Olivia's heart sank. How much? The sum Mr. Daniels named was far beyond what remained of her meager savings. "I'll cover it." Eli spoke up unexpectedly. "Consider it an investment in a neighbor." "Mr. Lawson, I couldn't possibly," Olivia protested. "You can pay me back once you get the ranch running," Eli said firmly. From one neighbor to another. With the legal matters settled, Eli took Olivia to see her inheritance. The Vale Ranch sat in a small valley with a creek running through it, more modest than Eli's spread but with good potential. The house was a simple one-story structure that had suffered from months of neglect. Inside, dust covered the sparse furnishings, and evidence of rodent occupation was apparent. "It needs work," Eli acknowledged. "But the bones are good." Olivia walked slowly through the rooms that had belonged to an uncle she barely remembered from childhood visits. In the bedroom, she found a small daguerreotype of her father and uncle as young men, their resemblance striking despite the faded quality of the image. "I can help you get started," Eli offered as they stood on the porch later. "I've got 2 hands I can spare to help with repairs, and I know where you can purchase some cattle at fair prices." "Why would you do all this for a stranger?" Olivia asked, genuinely puzzled by his generosity. Eli was quiet for a moment, his gaze traveling across the landscape. "I came out here 8 years ago with nothing but dreams and determination. First 2 years nearly broke me. If not for neighbors lending a hand when I needed it most, I wouldn't have survived." He turned to face her directly. "Out here, we look after our own. You're Promise Creek now." Over the next few weeks, Olivia threw herself into restoring the ranch with Eli's steady assistance. 2 of his ranch hands, brothers named Tom and Sam Wilson, helped repair the roof and fences while Olivia scoured the house clean and planted a small vegetable garden with seeds Mrs. Perkins provided. Olivia's first trip alone into Promise Creek revealed the curious nature of small-town life. Women eyed her with speculative glances, and men tipped their hats with extra politeness. It wasn't until she was selecting fabric at the general store that she overheard the whispered conversation. "Mighty convenient, her showing up right after Lawson started making real money with that new breeding program of his. And living at his place those first few days? Mark my words, she set her cap for him." Mortified, Olivia quickly completed her purchase and hurried back to the ranch, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. That evening, when Eli stopped by to check on her progress as had become his custom, she maintained a polite but distant demeanor. "Have I offended you somehow?" he finally asked, perplexed by the change. "It seems my presence here has sparked gossip about your intentions," Olivia said stiffly. "I would hate for your reputation to suffer because of your kindness to me." Eli's laugh caught her by surprise. Miss Vale, if I worried about town gossip, I'd never leave my house. Besides, his expression grew more serious. I'm 30 years old and unmarried. According to Promise Creek, that makes me either suspicious or pitiable depending on who you ask. His candor broke the tension, and Olivia found herself smiling. Well, I've been deemed a fortune hunter with designs on your prosperous ranch. Prosperous? Eli snorted. I'm only just now turning a decent profit after years of backbreaking work. But speaking of ranching, he nodded toward the corral where 4 cows and a bull now grazed. You need to decide if you're serious about running this place, or if you'd prefer to sell. Winter's coming in a few months, and it takes preparation. I want to try, Olivia said firmly. This is my chance for independence. I won't squander it. Then you need to learn, and quickly, Eli replied. Starting tomorrow, I'll teach you what you need to know. True to his word, Eli arrived at dawn the next day. What followed was the first of many practical lessons in cattle management, fence repair, and the 100 other skills necessary for survival on the frontier. Olivia's hands grew calloused, her skin tanned, and her confidence increased with each passing day. As September gave way to October, Olivia found herself looking forward to Eli's visits with increasing anticipation. His quiet competence and unwavering support had become the foundation of her new life. More than once, she caught herself watching the way sunlight played across his features as he demonstrated how to mend tack or calculate feed requirements for the winter. For his part, Eli seemed to find more reasons to linger at Vale Ranch. Sometimes he brought a book to loan her he had quite a collection or fresh game he'd hunted. One evening, as they sat on her porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, he spoke of his past for the first time. I came west from Pennsylvania after the war, he said quietly. Fought for the Union, saw things no man should see. Afterward, I couldn't settle back into city life. The noise, the crowds, it all reminded me too much of chaos. Out here, there's order to things. Natural law. A man knows where he stands. And where do you stand, Elijah Lawson? Olivia asked softly. His gaze met hers, something unspoken passing between them. Right where I need to be, he answered. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of Sheriff Taylor, riding up to the house with unusual haste. He nodded to them both before delivering his news. Miss Vale, there's been word from the marshal in East Texas. They captured the men who attacked your father's farm. 3 of them, part of the Jackson gang. They're being brought to trial next month. The news reopened wounds that had just begun to heal. That night, alone in her uncle's house, Olivia wept for the first time since arriving in Promise Creek. The grief she'd pushed aside in the struggle for survival finally demanded its due. The following morning, she was startled by a knock at her door. Eli stood there, concern evident in his expression. You weren't at the creek for our usual lesson, he said. I wanted to make sure you were all right after yesterday's news. I'm fine, she said automatically, then paused. No, that's not true. I'm not fine. But I will be. Eli nodded, understanding in his eyes. Get your coat. I want to show you something. Curious despite her melancholy, Olivia complied. Eli led her to a ridge overlooking both their properties, where the landscape stretched out in a tapestry of autumn colors. When I first came here, I was broken inside, he said quietly. Nightmares every night, rage I couldn't control. This spot saved me. I'd come up here when it got too much, just to remind myself that the world is bigger than my pain. He turned to her. The men who killed your father will face justice. But your life, that's still yours to build. Something shifted between them in that moment, a recognition of shared understanding that went beyond words. On impulse, Olivia reached for his hand and held it tight. They stood together in silence as the wind whispered through the grass. As October waned, Promise Creek prepared for its annual harvest festival. Despite her initial reluctance to participate in town social events, Olivia found herself persuaded by Mrs. Perkins, who arrived at Vale Ranch with a mission. "Every eligible lady needs a proper dress for the dance," the housekeeper declared, unveiling a length of deep green fabric. "This would suit your coloring beautifully. Mrs. Perkins, I couldn't possibly nonsense. Consider it an early Christmas gift. Besides," she added with a knowing look, "certain gentlemen will be in attendance who might appreciate the effort." The night of the festival transformed Promise Creek's main street into a wonderland of lanterns and autumn decorations. Tables groaned under the weight of the community's best dishes, and a platform had been constructed for dancing. Olivia arrived wearing the green dress Mrs. Perkins had helped her create, her auburn hair arranged in a style more elaborate than her usual practical braid. The appreciative glances from townspeople as she passed confirmed Mrs. Perkins' eye for what would suit her. Eli found her by the punch bowl, looking handsome in a clean black coat and string tie. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of her, and the admiration in his gaze sent warmth spreading through her chest. "Miss Vale, you look—" He paused, seemingly at a loss for words. "Like spring in the midst of autumn." "Mr. Lawson," she returned with a small curtsy, "you clean up rather well yourself." The evening progressed with food, conversation, and dancing. Olivia found herself partnered with various townsmen, but her attention constantly returned to Eli. When he finally claimed her for a waltz, the touch of his hand at her waist felt like coming home. "People are watching us," she murmured as they moved across the platform. "Let them," he replied, his voice low. "I've been watching you all evening, seems only fair they get their turn." The boldness of his statement brought color to her cheeks. "And what have you seen, watching me?" "A woman who's grown stronger every day since she arrived," he answered honestly. "A woman who's earned the respect of this community through her own efforts. A woman I can't seem to stop thinking about." Before Olivia could respond, the music ended, and they were swept into separate conversations with neighbors. The moment hung between them, unresolved but vibrant with possibility. As November brought colder weather, Eli's lessons shifted to winter preparations. They worked side by side, banking the foundations of both houses against the coming chill and ensuring the livestock had adequate shelter. Each day spent in his company deepened Olivia's feelings, though neither had spoken directly of what was growing between them. The first snowfall of the season caught Olivia at Eli's ranch, reviewing his ledgers to better understand the financial aspects of ranching. As white flakes began to swirl outside the windows, Eli stoked the fire higher and brought out a chess set. "My father taught me to play when I was 8, he explained, setting up the pieces. "Said it would teach me to think ahead." "My father taught me too," Olivia said with a smile. "He said it would teach me that a queen is the most powerful piece on the board." Their game was evenly matched, each move considered carefully in comfortable silence. When Eli finally claimed victory, the snow outside had intensified into a proper storm. "You can't ride back in this," he said firmly, looking out the window at the white landscape. "Mrs. Perkins has already prepared the guest room." That night, lying in bed listening to the wind howl around the eaves, Olivia contemplated how completely her life had transformed in just a few months. From desperate flight to growing security, from crushing grief to budding hope. And central to it all was the man sleeping somewhere down the hall, a man whose quiet strength had become her anchor in this new life. Morning revealed a world transformed by snow, glistening white under clear blue skies. After breakfast, Eli insisted on escorting Olivia back to her ranch to check on her animals. They rode through the pristine landscape, their horses breaking trail through knee-deep drifts. At Vale Ranch, they found the livestock secure but the house bitterly cold. Working together, they soon had a fire blazing in the hearth. As feeling returned to their chilled fingers, they sat close together on the small sofa, watching flames dance behind the grate. "I never expected to find contentment here," Olivia admitted softly. "When I arrived, I was simply running from what I'd lost. Now," she turned to face him, "now I can't imagine being anywhere else." Eli's hand found hers, his calloused fingers entwining with her own. "When you rode into my life that day, something changed. This land, everything I've built it suddenly seemed incomplete. His blue eyes held hers steadily. Olivia, I need to know if you feel what's growing between us, or if I'm fooling myself. You're not fooling yourself, she whispered, heart hammering in her chest. I feel it too. The kiss that followed was gentle at first, a question being asked and answered in the same breath. When they finally parted, Eli rested his forehead against hers. I should go, he said reluctantly. For the sake of your reputation, if nothing else. Since when do you care about town gossip? Olivia teased, though she knew he was right. His smile was tender as he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Since it involves someone I care deeply about. Winter settled over Promise Creek with a vengeance, making travel between the ranches more difficult but not impossible. Eli and Olivia found ways to see each other almost daily, their relationship deepening with each shared meal, each stolen kiss, each earnest conversation about hopes and dreams. Christmas arrived with a community celebration at the church, where their altered relationship did not go unnoticed. Whispers followed them, but the speculation had shifted from suspicion to anticipation of an announcement. New Year's Eve found them again at Eli's ranch, where Mrs. Perkins had outdone herself with a feast before tactfully retiring early, leaving them alone by the fire. As midnight approached, Eli refilled their glasses with sparkling cider. To new beginnings, he toasted, his expression serious despite the festive occasion. And to the past that shaped us, Olivia added, honoring all they had overcome to reach this moment. As the clock struck 12, Eli set down his glass and took both her hands in his. Olivia Vale, this past year has brought me joy I never thought possible. I can't imagine facing another year without you by my side. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Will you marry me? The ring inside was a modest diamond set in gold, simple but elegant. Olivia stared at it, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, Elijah Lawson, I will marry you. The kiss that sealed their engagement held all the promise of their future together. Spring 1877 transformed Promise Creek once more, bringing green grass, wild flowers, and wedding preparations. The town embraced the upcoming nuptials with enthusiasm, especially once it became known that the couple planned to combine their properties into one larger ranch. 2 weeks before the wedding, Olivia sat at her table reviewing plans when a knock sounded at her door. She opened it to find a stranger, a well-dressed man in his 50s with a leather portfolio under his arm. Miss Olivia Vale? My name is Harold Benton, attorney from Austin. I represent the estate of James Vale. Puzzled, Olivia invited him inside. I've already settled my uncle's affairs through Mr. Daniels here in town. This is a separate matter, Mr. Benton explained, opening his portfolio. Your uncle made investments in several railroad ventures before his passing. Those investments have recently paid dividends. He slid a document across the table. As his heir, this sum is now yours. The amount listed made Olivia's eyes widen. It was enough to clear any remaining debts and significantly expand their cattle operation. That evening, she rode to Eli's ranch, document in hand. His reaction to the news was not what she expected. That's wonderful, he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. What's wrong? Olivia asked, sensing his hesitation. Eli ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd come to recognize as discomfort. Nothing's wrong. It's just. He paused, searching for words. You don't need my help anymore. Financially, you could manage the ranch on your own now. Understanding dawned on Olivia. Elijah Lawson, are you worried I won't want to marry you now that I have money? His silence was answer enough. Stepping closer, she placed her hands on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palms. I'm not marrying you for security or convenience, she said firmly. I'm marrying you because I love you, your strength, your kindness, your stubborn determination. This money changes nothing except our ability to build our dreams faster. Relief washed over his features, followed by a sheepish smile. I'm being foolish, aren't I? Yes. she agreed, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. But you're my fool. Their wedding day dawned clear and perfect, the little church in Promise Creek filled beyond capacity with townspeople and ranchers from miles around. Olivia wore a gown of ivory silk ordered specially from San Antonio, while Eli cut a handsome figure in a new black suit. As they exchanged vows before Reverend Thompson, Olivia felt the completion of a circle from loss to love, from displacement to belonging. When they were pronounced husband and wife, the cheers from the congregation seemed to echo her own joy. The celebration afterwards spilled into the town square, with music, dancing, and enough food to feed the county. As evening fell, the newlyweds slipped away to begin their life together at what would now be known as the Lawson Ranch. Later, as moonlight spilled through the bedroom windows, Olivia lay in her husband's arms, contemplating the journey that had brought them together. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Lawson?" Eli murmured against her hair. "About how differently things might have turned out if I hadn't ridden into Promise Creek that day," she answered honestly. "I'd have found you somehow," he said with conviction. "Some things are meant to be." Weeks passed, settling into the rhythm of married life. Their combined ranch operations flourished under joint management, with Olivia's head for figures complementing Eli's practical experience. One evening in late summer, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies dance over the pasture, Eli broached a subject that had been on his mind. "Have you thought about children?" he asked, his voice casual though his expression was anything but. "A ranch this size could use heirs to pass it down to someday." Olivia was quiet for a moment, considering. "I've thought about it," she admitted. "Most men want sons to carry on their name and work." "I don't care if they're sons or daughters," Eli said, surprising her. "I just want a home filled with your laughter and maybe the patter of little feet someday." Olivia turned to him, eyes bright with emotion. "You'll want an heir," she said softly, testing his resolve. Eli gathered her hands in his gaze steady and true. "I want a home filled with your laughter," he repeated firmly. "Everything else is just blessing upon blessing." As he pulled her into his embrace, Olivia knew with certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, two people who had found in each other not just love, but home in its truest sense. Under the vast Texas sky, with the future stretching before them like the open range, they sealed their understanding with a kiss that promised forever.